This video will contain spoilers from the world and story of Portal and Portal 2. Please beware. Now, last time we talked about Portal lore, we got to talk about Chell, the main protagonist, and if you thought that her lore was already hard to reach, and maybe a bit of a stretch in some instances, well, where we're going now is going to be taking it to a whole another level. Now, the lore of Portal by default is quite obscure, with not many things shown on the surface, and even less than that actually explained in the game. And well, today, we're going to be looking at a character exactly like that. In today's video, we'll be looking at Doug Rattmann, the mysterious employee of Aperture Science, and a ghostly presence that appears both throughout Portal 1, Portal 2, and the Labrat comic. Now, before we begin, I just want to make clear that when it comes to distinguishing Portal canon, it can be kind of hard since there were many references to the game in other mediums considering its popularity, but for the purposes of this video, the only canon we'll be taking into consideration will be the two games and the Labrat comic. So, with that out of the way, grab the nearest quantum tunneling device, make sure you have a morality core or two with you, and let's go. Now, to start us off, let's first talk about who Doug Rattmann even is. I mean, chances are, you might have played through both the first and the second game, and you would still have no idea about this person's existence. Well, to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't actually blame you, because Doug Rattmann never makes physical appearance in either of the games. Instead, all that we can really see is what's left behind after him, and his effects on the story overall. Now, in his life, before the events of Portal 1 even happened, Doug Rattmann was an employee of Aperture Science. Now, it's not exactly known how long he has worked in the company for, but as far as his occupation goes, it seems that he was actually charged with the maintenance of the Aperture image format, and for some reason or another he did also have the access to the Aperture Science's bulletin board system with all the test subjects in it. However, he did not directly partake on the creation of GLaDOS. Looking at him as he is depicted in the Labrat comic, he is shown as a human male, with dark brown hair and light blue colored eyes, even though it is possible that he might suffer from anisocoria, where one pupil of an eye can be considerably larger than the other one. Now, of course, over his stay at Aperture, and especially during the events of the first game, a considerable amount of time had already passed, so his appearance has kind of gone down the drain, which would add longer hair and facial hair to his face. But let's quickly backtrack back to his time at Aperture. There are two considerable moments which we can pick out from the Labrat comic in which he participates, in terms of what happened before the events of the game. The first one is when he discussed the creation of GLaDOS with his colleague Henry, where in several occasions he pointed out that her being turned on might not be the best idea, considering she always tried to kill them right after the computer was initiated. Later, when Henry approaches him with a morality core, which Doug needs to help him fix, he once again expresses his concerns, and when Henry replies to him saying that he can think of the morality core as a conscience, Doug simply says, "You can always ignore your conscience." So at a certain extent, even before any of the events of the first Portal happened, he was already not very trusting towards the whole process. Now, of course, we all know what happened after. GLaDOS was turned on, she flooded the entire area with neurotoxin, and killed most of the employees in the place, with Doug being the only surviving employee of the bunch that managed to avoid her for years to come. Just before going into hiding, however, he did the famous change where he took Chell's name and put her all the way up in the list of test participants, thus ensuring that she would be woken up because he simply had a hunch about her. And of course, this in essence put into motion the events of Portal 1 and you waking up from cryosleep. Now, after this, Doug basically spent the majority of his time hiding away and drawing the numerous murals which you can find all throughout the games, hidden behind panels in test chambers and in walkways in between. Now, as far as Doug's mental state goes, we know that it isn't particularly great, as he suffers from schizophrenia, and in the Labrat comic, GLaDOS even mentions specifically delusions of persecution and pathological paranoia, which is all supposedly in his file. Because of this, he has to take a prescription pill regularly to avoid his symptoms, and considering during the events of Portal and Portal 1 he does not exactly have access to these, he often travels around with a companion cube which he perceives to be talking and communicating to him. Now, of course, during the events of Portal 1, he contributes to Chell waking up, and later, when she is once again dragged back into the facility at the end of the game, He's the one that makes sure she's put into cryosleep, thus basically waiting to be woken up by, well, a miracle, but not dying at least. It is at this point that he's unfortunately shot through the leg by a turret, and as his last-ditch effort he actually manages to crawl into and fall asleep in the same vault that you, as Chell, awoke from at the beginning of the game. Now, unfortunately, that is as far as his story goes, well, at least from what we know. What happened to him after? Well, we're not sure. Now, there have actually been two main theories about what could have happened to him, one of which is that, well, he's simply still around and walking through the facility, as in Portal 2, in some specific places, it is possible to hear his frantic ramblings and panicked voice when you listen really closely at some walls. Or the second theory, which is also possible, is that in the transmission received achievement, which has been added to Portal during Portal ARG, if you bring a science radio into one of his dens, it will produce an SSTV signal, which shows an image of the companion cube on the moon. And considering the fact that in one specific panel of the Lab Rat comic, he actually literally says, "I would have rather gone to the moon instead of powering on GLaDOS," this could be a fun Easter egg and maybe the place where he's spending his days now. But as it so happens, that is everything we know about Doug Rattmann, the mysterious ghostly presence from the two Portal games and the Lab Rat comic. What did he do in his life before joining Aperture? Or what happened to him after the events of the first game? Well, we don't know, so all that is left there is to speculate. But if you're curious, the voice of Doug Rattmann in Portal 2 is actually done by Mark Laidlaw. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned at least something new about the fascinating world of Portal and Portal 2. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And if there's anything that I missed or a theory of your own that you would like to cover, please make sure to leave that down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read it. Now with that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.